guard for Jamie Dixon.
Well, just smart and tough and plays very unlike a freshman. You can't speed him up. Outstanding passer. If Woodall starts to make shots, you better watch out for this backcourt.
There's Jamie Dixon in his 10th season at Pittsburgh, just popping up in the middle of that huddle, winning 75% of his games. Very uncharacteristic last season, 5-13 in the Big East, but hoping he is reloaded. And telling us before today's game he is deep. And Monte Ross, the head coach of Delaware, talk about a team built to win this year. This is a Delaware team that has struggled in 7 seasons under Monte Ross, but he preached patience, and some of his older players have come along, including Jamel Higgins. They are ready to make a run at the CAA.
And Devon Sadler yesterday in their loss just refused to quit. And the thing about Sadler, Mark, is he doesn't care about what it says on the jersey looking opposite him. He wants to compete.
Higgins and Adams to jump, and Pittsburgh will get first possession. Our officials, Pat Driscoll, Jeff Anderson, and Earl Watson, in a look at James Robinson, the point guard, sending it over to Woodall. See how Pittsburgh sets up, and this is a team that is going to be facing a Delaware team that is going to come out right from the spot. We saw Devon Sadler in the huddle about a moment ago really fire up this team.
You have to love it when you get leadership from inside the program, and that's exactly what Monte Ross is getting from guys like Sadler and Higgins.
Good switching defense here, forcing a late three-pointer by Patterson, no good. And Jarvis Threet comes up with it. Threet, along with Higgins, both dealt with the cramping of the legs, and that has been an issue for this Delaware team through its first 4 games.
Oh, they feel like they would be 4-0 if they did not lose Threet early against LaSalle, because they were having trouble containing him. And then this guy, when he went out in the second half, it was a tight ball game, and they were sticking right with Kansas State.
Here's Robinson, a deep 2 missing. And the rebound to Jamel Higgins. He's a 6'9 senior from Roanoke who averaged a double-double a year ago. Kyle Anderson missing on a 3. As we await the first make of this game between Pittsburgh and Delaware. Baptiste on defense against Zana, who turns and fires.
I'll tell you what, he has played very well. He's finishing. You look at guys like Patterson and Zana, each of them has raised their game just enough for Pittsburgh to get back to being Pittsburgh.
Well, part of the problems last year, certainly the health of Trey Woodall. Baptiste getting position there. And lost it out of bounds, tipped out of bounds by Pittsburgh. It'll stay with Delaware. Jamel Higgins, who had a double-double on Wednesday, and that was in limited time as he dealt, we'd like to say cramping of the legs, but I call it severe cramping. He had trouble in the hamstrings. He had trouble in the quads. Extra possession, Anderson for 3. Normally their sharpshooter, missing a couple early.
So you missed a chippy by Baptiste and a wide open shot from your best shooter. Those are opportunities if you're Delaware. You do not want to let those go by without points on the board.
James Robinson, 6'3", freshman guard. Patterson splitting the defense and found Zana on the cut. He'll get to the line.
That is the problem if your big hedges on the ball screen and allows himself to get split. Because what's going to happen is once you split the screen, as they allow him to do here, then your help rotates, and there's no one to help the helper, and Zana is the recipient.
Zanya, redshirt junior from Nigeria, hitting on the first one. Seems like this Pittsburgh team really able to turn the page from last year, and that was helped also by getting healthy late in the season. They played in a secondary tournament and won the CBI tournament, and able to boost that into this year.
I think you make a great case, and I think, you know, there was no doubt that Jamie Dixon was going to face some criticism for a program of his stature playing in the CBI, but they felt like they wanted games because they were at the healthiest point they had been all year. It was a great decision. The more games you play, the more repetition you get, the better you become.
Keep an eye on number 10 in blue and gold. Devon Sadler, he's a junior who can get baskets from all over, outside and in. A little bit off on that shot. Came up with 32 points. Tried to put Delaware on his back in the semifinal game against Kansas State. 3 minutes in, 4-0 in favor of Pittsburgh. Zana against Baptiste. That's going to be a tough matchup for Baptiste today.
Yeah, remember, they are without Brinkley, their starter in that spot. Baptiste normally comes off the bench, and obviously Pittsburgh likes the matchup for Zana. And what do you like about Zana so far? On the catch, in the post, just real patient, Mark.
Yeah.
Just feeling the defense, not being sped up.
And not only 0 for 6 to start the game, Delaware, but an unforced error there as Kyle Anderson lost it across the near side.
Yeah, I asked Jamie Dixon about this game because you're 5 or 6 plays and a poor showing on the backboards in the final 20 minutes away from upsetting Michigan. Are your guys prepared to play in, quote, the consolation game or third place game? They are ready. You can tell. They're engaged.
Well, one of the concerns would be playing a team many of the country may be not familiar with, as Anderson got a near steal. But these Pittsburgh guys know Delaware is a team that has upperclassmen, as Woodall knocks down the 3, and they kind of knew the resume coming in. There was buildup for this Delaware team.
Well, they understand Delaware on their side of things. This is a resume game. This is a year Monte Ross expects to be in the postseason to show continued progress at the program.
Tried to find a cutting Baptiste and a turnover. Woodall, nice dish to Patterson, and Pittsburgh has scored the first 10 points of the game, and Monte Ross needs an early timeout. He does not look happy on the bench in front of Delaware. I'd like to welcome those of you here to Madison Square Garden in New York, our third place game at the NIT season tip-off. We're on ESPN HD right now with Pittsburgh leading Delaware 10-0 with Doris Burke. I'm Mark Kestisher. Jamie Dixon was upset with his defense in their loss against fourth-ranked Michigan the other day. He's got to be happy with how his team's come out of the gate.
Well, there's no question. They like a favorable matchup with Talib Zana, who has been outstanding through the early part of the season. He has made a jump in a Pittsburgh uniform, and because they are without their starter, Josh Brinkley, Pittsburgh is looking to work that matchup early.
Those just joining us, Josh Brinkley out with a right ankle injury. Carl Baptiste normally gets a lot of minutes off the bench filling in. Delaware 8 possessions so far in this game. They have missed their 6 shots and they have turned it over twice. There's a look at Josh Brinkley, unable to play today.
Well, and not surprisingly, out of that timeout, out goes Baptiste, and in comes Marvin King Davis, who's going to be asked to play a lot more minutes without Brinkley.
Marvin King Davis, a freshman from Richmond, who's logged only 18 minutes in 3 games this year. And there he is wearing 21 in blue. Actually was a McDonald's All-American runner-up, redshirted last year. Here's 3, and he knocks one down from 17 feet. First basket of the night so far for the Blue Hens.
I'll tell you what, Freet has talent. There were times last year that he was unguardable in the latter part of the CAA season. He needs to be engaged and motivated.
Sophomore, was on the All-CAA rookie team a year ago, and I'm sure Monte Ross fired up his guys on the bench after that 0 for 6 start. Pittsburgh nearly knocked off number 4 Michigan here Wednesday night in the semifinals. And Jamie Dixon's Panthers have always been good at Madison Square Garden. Here's Zana, around and down for Talib Zana, off to a great start.
Well, Pittsburgh has gone exclusively in half-court sets to side pick and rolls, and they have been efficient and effective with them.
Here's 3 with a little fall away, and block shot by the freshman, Steven Adams. 3 rejected again. Good start for the 7-footer from New Zealand. And here he is on the offensive end, putting it in.
Gotta love that one. And now you can see why Jamie Dixon and the Pittsburgh fans are excited about the 7-footer. One of their better athletes, very quick leaper. He struggled a little bit, Steven Adams, keeping up with the pace of the game in the United States. But folks, when he puts it together, you better watch out.
Well, Doris, that's good news for Jamie Dixon, because as you pointed out, on Wednesday night, he struggled here at the Garden against Michigan, and there's a foul as he has a tough matchup against Jamel Higgins.
Steven Adams has become a bit of a cult figure in Pittsburgh. The Oakland Zoo loves this guy. Why? Because they know there's plenty of rejection. Do you like rejection? Well, if you're Steven Adams and you're a shot blocker, you sure do.
morning's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Lowe's. Lowe's, never stop improving. Wrangler, real, comfortable jeans. And the Capital One Cash Rewards Card with a 50% annual bonus.
Pittsburgh out to a fast start against Delaware. And we got a little look at the Kiwi phenom here the last couple minutes.
7 feet, 250 pounds. Very good athlete. Off his feet quickly. Blocks his own man shot. Goes over and help blocks the next guy's. Runs down the middle of the floor. You call that a rim run. Rim to rim. And a nice little feed inside. Pittsburgh off to a great start.
Well, there you see from New Zealand. Youngest of 18 siblings. His sister winning a couple of gold medals. So obviously the athleticism is in the family, and of course the ties from Jamie Dixon, who played professionally in New Zealand. He knew about this kid and knows he's got a lot of upside.
Yeah, and you could see it in that just brief little exchange where he runs the floor after blocking 2 shots. 1 foul trouble. The speed of the game is causing him to be just a second late on some of his coverages. The first foul he picked up in this one, silly. He was in a bad position. He tries to use his length to come over the top. He'll figure that out with repetition.
Over Dante Taylor. King Davis missing on the shot. Zana off to a quick start. Zana's got 8 points, 3 rebounds here in the opening 5 minutes. All right, if you're Delaware, Doris, here's a team that is expecting big things here in New York City. They suffered a tough loss against Kansas State. What do they have to do against Pittsburgh to kind of slow it down, as Deron Johnson is?
Well, when I talked to their staff, they said 2 things: paint and glass. Well, 10 of Pittsburgh's first 14 points were all in the paint. They're having trouble. And remember, this is a deep Pitt team. They've got size and athleticism. So they've got a crowd to paint and hope that Pittsburgh, if they can force tough jump shots, will miss those jumpers.
And that time, Devon Sadler missing. And while Delaware has struggled and the turnover from Pittsburgh, Pitt has made 7 straight shots to build this early 14-point lead. Here's Sadler. He'll break down defenses. Nice rebound. Offensive board, ripping it away and putting it back in, Jamel Higgins.
That is a nice job competing, because of the size of Pittsburgh is proving to be an issue for Delaware. They think back to the Kansas State game, how many offensive rebounds they gave up in that matchup.
Kansas State shot poorly, did not take advantage, but able to get by a Delaware team. We'll have Kansas State and number 4 Michigan coming up a little later on. Here's Woodall again splitting the defense. Ziegler just transferred in. Trey Ziegler hitting.
See, every time you hedge that big on a ball screen and allow it to be split, you compromise every defender behind you. It makes your defense look really bad. Commit to that trap or to that hedge, and don't let that ball handler between you.
Terrell Rogers, handling the ball. Freshman, been getting a lot of minutes for Monte Ross's team. Shot clock at 7. King Davis had it knocked away by Woodall. It's been an outstanding effort on both ends of the floor by Pittsburgh here, 9 minutes in. Johnson finds Dante Taylor.
That's going to be a goaltend. Yep.
Knocked out of the cylinder.
No question.
Dante Taylor gets credit for the basket. That's now 9 consecutive shots made by Pittsburgh. Speaking of Monte Ross, coming up, Delaware making a visit on this Thanksgiving Day to Ground Zero. That story coming up.
Watching ESPN's Feast Week, presented by Lowe's.
Well, Delaware among the 4 teams that got to advance to New York City. They trail here against Pittsburgh early, but this is also a trip not just about basketball, but about a chance to be together over the holidays. And Monte Ross took his team down to ground zero yesterday. A chance for the team to see the new World Trade Center going up. And, of course, the reflecting pools, which were the footprints of the towers that fell now 11 years ago. And Monte Ross really, Doris, a chance to explain to kids who really, I mean, these guys were some of them 3rd grade, 4th grade when this happened. A real deep experience for this club yesterday.
And that is Saul Frankel, the director of basketball ops for Delaware. And he was actually grew up on the Upper West Side, but his school was in Lower Manhattan. He said he went to get up out of the subway to go up to school, and basically it was almost simultaneous to the 2nd building collapsing. He sort of turned on his heels, happened to look at a woman catch a cab to his mom's office, which was school on the Upper West Side. So obviously it's very difficult to see that footage for any of us and not become emotional. And these trips, when you come to New York City, it can be about more than basketball. It's about education for life.
This Delaware Blue Hens squad split its first 4. Sadler fouled on his drive at the elbow. Going to go on Dante Taylor.
Pittsburgh foul called against number 11, Dante Taylor. That's his first.
Just joining us, Pittsburgh missed its first 2 shots of the game. Has made 9 in a row. Jumped out to a huge lead over Delaware early. Threat looking. Had Baptiste momentarily. They kick it out with a full shot clock. Delaware getting to New York by knocking off Virginia in Charlottesville. Right now their signature win of the very early season, but they were hoping to pick off one of these 2 teams just in case down the line when the Colonial tournament comes up and they don't win it and get the automatic bid.
Well, how about the job defensively by Ziegler and Johnson, keeping both guys in front.
Sadler throwing up the shot.
Well, and you just keep pressuring. You know, multiple drives by Threat and Sadler, who was so impressive in Wednesday night's basketball game. But tell you what, you're going to have your hands full of your Ziegler trying to keep him in front.
Well, on the other side, going to be against Jamel Higgins. That's going to be his 2nd.
Ziegler had made him give the basketball up the first time, but on the 2nd dribble drive, after Threat tried to get past Johnson, Sadler is a relentless competitor, little chip on his shoulder, doesn't care who's looking opposite him. I loved watching this young man play.
Clutch and tough would be 2 words that come to mind with Devon Sadler. This is Trey Ziegler, number 23 in white, transfer from Central Michigan. There's Jamie Dixon with this big lead and an opportunity to bring some of his guys off the bench, and J.J. Moore knocks out a 3. And one of the things he said to us is just how deep this club is, and we're getting it here as some of the 2nd unit.
Yeah, you could tell how disappointed Jamie was in the second 20 minutes in their effort on the backboard. We keep talking about the 1-3-1 zone that John Beilein threw in the second half, and no doubt Pittsburgh didn't execute. They were more disappointed that they were minus 12 on the backboards in that second 20 minutes.
That is not Pittsburgh basketball. Here's Sadler in the lane. And he'll get to the line as Deron Johnson. Check that, J.J. Moore picks up his first. Let's take a look now at the bracket for the Old Spice Classic. Just saw it on ESPN. Davidson knocking off West Virginia. And they'll get the winner of 17th ranked Gonzaga and Oklahoma coming up at 7:30 Eastern time. Davidson always fun to watch with Bob McKillop.
Oh, what an outstanding coach. Fun to watch. I had them last year against Duke. And what about Mark Few? Just very quietly out in Spokane year after year, good team after good team. And I'll tell you, a couple of years ago I had a chance to go out to the McCarthy Athletic Center. What a great place to watch college basketball. Enthusiastic, and actually as much as they get on the opponent, they do it in very respectable fashion.
That's
you
right.
know what I mean? If you know what I'm getting at.
I get you there. And yeah, very intense. There are a lot of tough places to go play, but that venue in Spokane is one of the toughest, and Mark's done a great job out there for many years now. All right, so Delaware needs a few stops here as they try to settle in. Here's Taylor, blocked by the freshman King Davis. Nice pass to the cutter, and Deron Johnson scores.
Deron Johnson.
So many of Pittsburgh's. Listen, if Pittsburgh makes the three like Moore made on the prior possession, okay, you can live with that. But so many of Pittsburgh's points are coming from inside the paint.
Terrell Rogers only 5'8". Been the backup point guard this year, trying to go into the trees and has one taken away. When you think about Jamie Dixon's team a year ago, this guy, James Robinson, Trey Ziegler, who's come in, Deron Johnson, who was a redshirt last year. He has really added some talent to this team.
I love Robinson. I mean, this young man, just smart, tough, competitive, excellent passer.
Here's Robinson. Nice looking soft jumper, just in and out. Yeah, Jamie Dixon had told us he's even been more impressive this early part of the season than when he last saw him at the end of his high school campaign. Looks like they found a keeper, and of course, they continue to recruit New York City very well. So these are very important games as Pittsburgh plays in its final season in the Big East. Four to shoot for three. Had it taken away by Robinson.
Good pass. How about that, Robinson? Beautiful. Perfectly placed in transition with limited vision. That is a terrific play, young man.
Only 5+ games into his career, drawing the turnover there. Gorgeous day, the day after Thanksgiving, and beautiful for Pittsburgh fans as well. Pittsburgh hitting on 11 of its 15 shots, a big 17-point lead, and Doris, a lot of those points coming inside.
Well, you know, your field goal percentage reflects the quality of the shots you got. They went right to work with Zana on Baptiste. He gets a couple of buckets inside, but it's a lot of different guys. Patterson running the floor, Johnson off the bench, and you talked about it. They've got depth, and so they haven't missed a beat. With Ziegler and Johnson defending on the perimeter, they're making it very tough on Delaware.
There you see 14-4. Jamie Dixon, not going to see a smile till after the game, but he has to be happy with the opening minutes of this game against a team who could have taken it to him early.
Correct, with one exception. You know, they've given up 7 offensive rebounds. Now, Hagens you can live with because this guy is one of the nation's dominant rebounders, but Jarvis 3. Your guards are not doing a good job on the backboards defensively. They've got to sharpen that up. Coaches will always, always, always give you something to reach for.
There is never a perfect game.
No, no. And I don't blame them. Those guys, boy, you can't relax. Not in this day and age.
And even after 10 straight trips to the NCAA tournament for Pittsburgh, most of those under Jamie Dixon. Last year, certainly a wake-up call with Trey Woodall injured much of the year. And that kind of set the tone. But of the games I've watched so far this year, and again, it's early in this game, but this is as well put together I've seen Pittsburgh so far in all phases.
Well, you make a great point. I think the thing that was so shocking a year ago for Jamie Dixon's club was, you know, they have built a culture on toughness and defense and rebounding. They were scored against at times so easily. Their defense was porous. I watched them the other night against Michigan. I thought, oh boy, they're back. They're back, and they are who they are.
Patterson missing off the inbound. And maybe you know, some of that is credit Michigan on the win. They were splitting some of those doubles, and they're lightning fast, and we're going to see them in our championship game coming up a little on. But that was a Pittsburgh team that had a 7-point lead in the second half.
To me, this is John Beilein's best roster ever. I will be anxious to catch up with him briefly, but it's got to be his most talented roster. You guys been at it 35 years. He's an outstanding tactician, but with the players he's got, he can play a little differently than he has in the past.
He's got some names, if you haven't followed college basketball this season, some basketball surnames you've heard of. Robinson, Hardaway, etc. And that's coming up against Kansas State later. A rare Pittsburgh miss there. Sadler. Another offensive rebound and a foul. So again, the offensive rebound. And here are some of those big names, Doris. You've heard of these guys.
I'll tell you this. The first couple of times I watched Glenn Robinson, it's just been extraordinary. Outstanding athlete, NBA-ready frame right now. And, of course, Tim Hardaway, you know, everybody talked about he struggled a year ago. He looks dynamite. I think he's going to be terrific, efficient. But it all, that drink gets stirred by Mr. Trey Burke, one of the nation's elite players.
Or John Horford, Tito's son and the brother of Al Horford from the Atlanta Hawks. So that's all coming up in our title game. But right here, can Delaware make some inroads against Pittsburgh? Right now, Hagen's off the floor. So Sadler setting up Anderson, who again continues to struggle from three-point land. Nice move by Patterson in the lane. Contact and the basket.
Patterson and one.
Now you think about this guy and how well he was playing down the stretch of last season. Patterson
was the MVP of the CBI tournament, and he's bringing that to the freshman.
That looks like a tough call. I mean, that's, and I think block charge is definitely the hardest, but it sure did appear that guy might have beaten him to the spot.
King Davis called.
And if the freshman's been called upon, you know because Brinkley's out, you're going to get more minutes. But if you're King Davis, you maybe don't know exactly how many.
Josh Brinkley sitting it out with an ankle injury. Jamel Hagen's right now on the bench with 2 fouls. And so this man, Devon Sadler, going to be called upon for the comeback, and he drops in a triple.
How about that play? You back the defender off with a hard dribble like you're going to the rim and between the legs step back. I love this kid.
6'2" junior from Aberdeen, Maryland. Under 5 minutes to go in the half. Cameron Wright, and he's on the scoreboard. Cameron Wright, who got a lot of minutes last year in that backcourt that was injured, struggling to get minutes this year, but getting an opportunity. And on Tuesday on ESPN, the ACC Big Ten Challenge. 4th-ranked Michigan, you'll see them later here, but you'll see them against 16th-ranked NC State at 7:30 Eastern. And then the #1 team in the country, Indiana, against #9 North Carolina. The ACC Big Ten Challenge Tuesday on ESPN. You could also catch it on Watch ESPN.
How about that for a back-to-back?
That's not bad.
Wow.
Clear your schedule.
Yes.
Well, the great thing is getting to see all these teams in the tournaments, the holiday tournaments. Indiana winning across the borough in Brooklyn.
I'll be in Madison waiting for my Virginia at Wisconsin game on Wednesday. I can guarantee I'll be watching that double feature.
Another Delaware miss. Patterson finds right. Offensive board. Zana puts it back in. 10 points for Talib Zana, and Pittsburgh has opened up a 21-point lead. Be the Sadler show, and right now he missed there. Right now just appears not enough size on the floor for Delaware against this team.
You know, they were compromised against Kansas State. Good job by King Davis, the freshman, to come over and help.
Great save by Anderson. Sadler 1-on-2. Beautiful switch of the hands to the left.
You have 23 important minutes if you're Delaware. You know, I know you're down a lot, but you have got to show some things here.
Timeout on the floor in Madison Square Garden. Got some maize and blue in the stands, and those are some of the Michigan Wolverines, ranked 4th in the nation. They're coming up against Kansas State in our championship game. There's a look at Tim Hardaway Jr. He's coming off a good game.
Dagger three, just a dagger three.
Oh, Glenn Robinson III. He talked about a chiseled frame as a freshman, ready to go, and really seems to be learning at a very quick pace here at the collegiate level.
So you've got Trey Burke, you know, who is an outstanding decision maker, explosive in transition. You know, Robinson not a guy who has to dominate the ball to be effective.
As Woodall scores for Pittsburgh. That's a great point. Sometimes he's very easygoing and kills you in so many ways.
When you have that much talent, one of the things you talk about is chemistry. Is everybody happy with their roles and their shots, et cetera, et cetera? John Beilein has said this group is phenomenal. Everybody's comfortable. And again, a guy like Robinson, who can create his own or go get something off the window to get a scoring opportunity.
Under 10 seconds to shoot for Delaware. Anderson steps back for three and knocks it down. Kyle Anderson wearing that mask, suffered a broken nose exhibition season, struggled with his shot. Maybe the mask had something to do with it. And another basket for Pittsburgh.
2-point field goal, Pittsburgh. Trey
Sigler giving the Panthers a 20-point lead. Anderson's open. Is he feeling it? You bet.
And you like that they're playing hard. The fact that Sadler dives on the floor on the last possession to try to make a play. Somebody's got to be there on the drive when he gives up that kind of position. But you've got to compete here if you're Delaware.
I think you made a great point earlier about 23 minutes, now 21 minutes and change left. This is an opportunity for them amidst a very difficult schedule. That's a killer. Trey Woodall from outside.
Yeah. They made 7 threes against Michigan. And, you know, if you're the Delaware staff, you come in thinking this is not their specialty. Well, they've been so dominant on the interior. Now the jumpers are a little bit more free-flowing. You've got the lead. It's easy to let it go from deep.
Delaware down 20 as we come up to about a minute to go in the first half at Madison Square Garden, our third place game. Here's Sadler going baseline. Look to dish off, went off the leg of Baptiste. He'll go to Pittsburgh. 57 seconds to go, and a little hitch in the stride of Devon Sadler. Monte Ross won't be too happy with those developments.
Connors in studio. Coming up on the UPS Halftime Report, the latest on the suspension of Morehead State head coach Sean Woods. We'll tell you what it was and if the school handled things properly. Plus, busy day in college football. Big games for Nebraska and LSU. Seth Greenberg joins us at the half. Now back to Madison Square Garden. Mark and Doris.
Back in New York, 57 seconds to go in the half. Delaware's down 20. You see Devon Stadler. Good news is he's on his feet. But here was the sequence at the end of the last timeout. Look at the knee-on-knee with Dante Taylor. And Sadler got the worst of it. You can see mentioning to the bench, I got to come out.
Listen, with all the issues they've had with the cramping, James threed against LaSalle in the second half. Hagan, in what was a nip-and-tuck ball game on Wednesday night, misses all but 9 minutes in the second half. Health is going to play a factor. Monte Ross needs every guy available.
Larry Savage, one of those guys on the floor now, is Moore in and out on the three. And quickly Savage a rebound. Very athletic rebounder. Guys who haven't seen a lot of minutes. Getting the call from Monte Ross here with his team down. Of course, Josh Brinkley out this afternoon. As you pointed out, Hagan's on the bench along with Sadler. About 8 seconds difference, game clock and shot clock. Ball stays with Pittsburgh with 23.2.
Yeah, if you're Pittsburgh, you could have come in here. You're looking opposite a mid-major, albeit one that you knew was going to be pretty good. But you're a second half, like 10-minute stretch away from upsetting number 4 in the country. You can worry. And Jamie Dixon said, I talked to my guys about it. We couldn't have a letdown. We had to come out and play well, and they have.
Only one turnover in the first half. You saw Sadler come back out on the floor. You know he's going to want to handle the ball before this shot clock expires. But Threet takes it in the lane. And contact against Pittsburgh with 10.7 to go in the half.
Pittsburgh foul called against number 44.
J.J. Moore picking up his second.
Now, this is a guy who had a couple of games last year where he had double-digit free throw attempts. On that drive, you see why. He's got explosive speed, doesn't mind contact.
Gets to the free throw line and normally hits at a pretty good rate. As he missed there, shot 81% a year ago. A little bit off that so far this season at 71%. Sophomore from Richmond, Virginia. Threet missing on both. Tapped out, controlled by Delaware. They have 8 seconds. Sadler the floater. Another offensive board and a whistle with 2.6. So I guess if you find the fly in the ointment, as you pointed out earlier, Doris, it's the lack of rebounding for Pittsburgh in the first half.
Boy, Jamie Dixon's reaction after another offensive rebound was priceless. He was hot with his guys.
So another chance to cut in to the 20-point deficit. This is a one-on-one.
They're killing themselves.
3 straight misses at the line. The heave from beyond half court. And that's the half of it, but impressive start for Pittsburgh here in this first half as they lead by 20 points. 41-21, Pittsburgh leading Delaware at the half here at the Garden. Right now we're going to send it back to the studio. Kevin Connors and Seth Greenberg have our UPS halftime report.
All right, Mark, thanks very much. Boy, 1 turnover in the first half. Jamie Dixon likes that as they head to the locker room. Pitt up by 20. Welcome into the UPS Halftime Report. Kevin Connors, Seth Greenberg. You want to see how your teams bounce back from defeats early on in the season, and Pitt is doing a terrific job of just that, Seth. Let's talk about the culture of this program, the mentality of the program, and how they've been able to do it.
Yeah, Jamie Dixon's built this basketball program on a culture of toughness, getting stops, and upperclassmen. This year with Trey Woodall, a fifth-year senior, Talib Zana, a fourth-year junior, he's got a combination of youth and experience. Steven Adams, he gives him a guy that can protect the front of the rim and run the floor. Look at Steven Adams right now. He contests a jump shot first time and a second time, and now he gets out in transition. Terrific job of locating the basketball, catching, and finishing. Steven Adams is a difference maker, but it starts with the leadership of the junior and senior, Zana and Woodall.
He had 2 points and 2 blocks in the first half. We saw it all right there. We're talking about Adams in that situation, but again, Pitt a 20-point halftime lead. There was breaking news here earlier in the day. We want to let you know that Morehead State has suspended head coach Sean Woods one game following this incident Wednesday with his point guard Devon Atkinson. Woods will miss Monday's game against Norfolk State. Atkinson fouled out late in the second half when the altercation occurred. Woods has since apologized. You called the one-game suspension justified. What about those who say one game wasn't enough? What would you say to that?
I'd say it's a lesson learned. I think Sean Woods loves his players. He's an emotional coach. It was an emotional environment. You're talking about playing at Rupp Arena where his jersey is hanging in the rafters. That's not an excuse. It's unacceptable to put your hands on a player. You can counsel your players aggressively, but you cannot put your hands on a player. Sean Woods, he got caught up in the moment, but he's a good coach. He did a terrific job. The thing for me is that incident took away from how well his team was playing. They were playing Kentucky play by play. It was a competitive basketball game, and unfortunately, that incident takes it away. Morehead State did the right thing. They gave him a suspension. Lesson learned. Now it's time to move on.
What are the ways that you would discipline players in a situation where it's in the course of a game, hotly contested, but you need to make sure you don't cross that line? How did you do it?
Well, I think, again, we all challenge our players. And, again, you're going to coach your players hard. You're going to counsel them aggressively. You're going to hold them accountable. Again, the best motivator is the bench. You take him out of the game, let him sit and watch for a while. But, again, I was a tad bit of an emotional coach. I was emotionally invested in the game. All right. And there were times that I would have to confront players. But the one thing that you can never do is you can never put your hands on a player. Again, you're going to challenge them. You're going to demand of them. You're going to want them to, coaching is about getting someone where they can't get themselves.
Sean Woods has been contrite. He has apologized for the altercation. He said all the right things, and we'll have to take him at his word for right now. What's the best way for a program to move forward once something like this has happened?
Well, I think Sean Woods did the right thing. He stepped forward. He took responsibility and accountability for his actions. He's extremely remorseful. People don't understand the relationship he has with his players prior to this incident. All right, he has a relationship with his players. He has great trust in terms of that relationship with his players. So now, again, this is an isolated incident. It's time to move forward.
He will miss Monday's game against Norfolk State, the one-game suspension for Sean Woods following the altercation on Wednesday. We'll step aside. You got to stick around to see an individual performance today in that Minnesota-Memphis game and why we'll be talking about Dre Hollins all weekend long.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by the new film Jack Reacher. In theaters Friday, December 21st. This film is rated PG-13. And Mercedes-Benz. Experience truly great engineering today at your authorized dealer. Welcome back to the UPS Halftime Report.
Kevin Connors, Seth Greenberg here in studio. Battle for Atlantis, Minnesota taking on number 19 Memphis. And Dre Hollins had an afternoon he will never forget. He can stroke it from the outside.
You think he's seeing a big basket? Right side, left side, in the trail spot? Let's see it one more time. He steps in, he's shot ready, he knocks it down.
24 points in the first half. Minnesota led by 5 at the break. And then in the second half, he just kept it going, Coach.
This time off the bounce. Dre Hollins is a guy that can create a shot, but he's best stepping in off a kick out.
And he wasn't just jacking without a conscience. He was 12 of 16 in this game. A career-high 41 points closing seconds. Why not a little exclamation point?
Minnesota, huge win, bouncing back against that tough loss against Duke. Great win for Minnesota. Memphis right now, they're reeling a little bit.
5 of 5 from three-point range for Hollins. 12 of 16 from the field. Golden Gophers now 5-1 with the win. West Virginia and Davidson going at it. Old Spice Classic semifinal matchup. Second half. Alric Murray down low. West Virginia up by 4. And then what do you think about the shot selection here?
30 seconds left on the shot clock. That's one of those, oh no, good shot, get back on defense.
And then under 6 seconds to go, how about the defense?
Terrific job switching that little handoff. Great contest. Davidson gets the win.
Jawan Staten, no. Davidson, the 3-point victory over West Virginia in Florida. We'll step aside. When we come back, we'll turn our attention to college football. Nebraska with Big Ten hopes on the line.
This halftime report is delivered by UPS. Let UPS put the power of logistics to work for you. This halftime report is delivered by UPS. Let UPS put the power of logistics to work for you.
Kevin Connors back with you on the UPS halftime report. Nebraska and Iowa, big one for the Huskers, a win, and they'd go to the Big Ten championship game. But James Vanderberg with other ideas. 1-yard touchdown run. Iowa led 7-3. 7-6 game in the third when Damian Stafford picks Vanderberg off. And then later in the third, Braylon Hurd. That ground game working for Nebraska. 18-yard run down to the Iowa 6. And how much have they missed Rex Burkhead this season? Doosh. In he goes. 13-7, Nebraska will play for the Big Ten championship. LSU and Arkansas going at it right now. Tyler Wilson intercepted by Thorold Simon. It would lead to an LSU field goal. Bayou Bengals grabbed a 3-0 lead at that point, and this one is important for LSU. It's where they are right now in the second quarter. LSU needs a lot of help, but they still have an outside chance to play for the SEC championship. They need Texas A&M to beat Missouri. They also need Alabama to lose to Auburn. That is highly unlikely, but they want to take care of business here. 3-0 lead on Arkansas in the second quarter. In a strong first half for Pitt star Trey Woodall, 7 points. The Panthers a 20-point halftime lead.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Subway, the official training restaurant of Robert Griffin III and athletes everywhere. And Infinity, luxury cars that deliver inspired performance. ESPN's Feast Week, presented by Lowe's.
And we welcome you back to the NIT season tip-off, part of Feast Week, presented by Lowe's. Our third-place game, Pittsburgh with a 20-point lead over Delaware. With Doris Burke, I'm Mark Kestisher. Welcome back to Madison Square Garden, dominating Pittsburgh in the first half. Let's take a look at the Reese's perfect plays from the first half.
Oh, Delaware talked about crowding the paint and rebounding productivity. Well, early on, it was a lot of inside scoring. 22 of their 41 coming from inside of the paint, whether it was in a post-up game with Zana or in transition there with Patterson. And then later, once you're collapsing into the lane because you're giving up so many easy shots, you can spot up from from deep and start to make shots. And you don't necessarily think of this Pittsburgh team as a great shooting team. They've already had 8 and 7 threes. So they're actually going to make some shots on nights, and you've got to be prepared to step out.
Jamie Dixon bringing some intensity to the start of the second half. He knows his team enjoyed the first 20 minutes and does not want them to let up. They had a 7-point second half lead against 4th-ranked Michigan on Wednesday before succumbing. And now we've got a foul on the motion offense. Zana's going to get tagged with it his first. Let's take a look at the stats. What jumps out at you from the first half?
Well, obviously, I'm not surprised. Sadler, we've talked about what a competitive this guy is. I know he can be a high-volume shooter, some of that by necessity for Delaware. But this is an important 20 minutes for their season. I think you need to sort of comport yourself competitively here in the second half of your Monte Ross's club.
Trey Woodall just picked up his second foul. Got a glare from official Earl Walton as Woodall may be questioning that call. So 2 quick fouls against Pittsburgh to start the second half. And you talked about Sadler took 11 shots, made only 3. Maybe big story. Hagen's only got 4 shots off in the first half, though he set much of that half with 2 fouls, and Sadler getting off to a good start in the second half.
Yeah, he's been better this year at understanding what is and is not a good shot. And I think in this instance, Pittsburgh's been pretty sound defensively, so he's been forced to make some tough shots and tough plays.
It's a little different work for Trey Woodall this year, with James Robinson leading at point guard. 4 first-half assists, though, for Woodall, and coming off a screen to catch and shoot.
Well, a great point. I mean, you think about Trey Woodall and playing the lead guard spot. Well, Robinson has been outstanding. And this, if he can start to get his rhythm, Woodall, this is a dangerous backcourt.
Here's Baptiste off the window and in. Carl Baptiste usually comes off the bench, 6th man. But getting the start today, Josh Brinkley not able to play with an ankle injury. When you look at the Big East, it's early in the season. We're not even close to conference starting yet. How do you see Pittsburgh maybe re-emerging in the conference this year?
Well, I think, they've built their success on toughness, defense, and rebounding. They've got a lot of pieces. They can wear you out with the depth. I mean, look at the bench scoring in this one. 17 zip. They're deep. They come at you with athleticism and some bodies.
If Lamar Patterson can continue his ascent in play, scoring there, only better for Jamie Dixon's squad as Jarvis Street hits for the Blue Hens.
I think one thing that has to happen for Pittsburgh to be, sort of the competitive team they want to be, I think Steven Adams' development is huge. He has just got to progress and catch up quickly to the speed of the game.
Adams, there he is, big number 13, 7-footer from New Zealand, had consecutive blocks early. Then Jamie Dixon played him up to the second foul. But you just get a look at him at 7 feet. It seems really proportioned well. This is a guy who's just getting acclimated to playing here in America and seems to have a very high ceiling.
Yeah, there's no doubt. 7 feet, 250 pounds, very skilled, very athletic.
Zano hit his first 4 shots, but all of them from much closer than that. An offensive rebound, and Threet gets tagged for the personal foul, his first for Delaware. It was Pittsburgh who had trouble with the offensive glass in the first half, giving up 10 offensive rebounds. 2 in a row off the catch.
Yeah, you think about it, he is a career 39% shooter. Now, that's what I'm saying. If he can become an efficient scorer, he's going to look out, because Robinson will deliver the ball where it needs to be.
Zana the block. What a play by Woodall. Yeah, he's been averaging 12 points a game, but I had him for 4 for 21 his previous 2 games coming in.
Yeah, and listen, 2 ball handlers, 2 decision makers, 2 high assist to turnover ratio guys in Woodall and Robinson. He's got very good speed. Watch him cross the defender. He takes away any angle that defender had at making a block shot.
You know, sometimes there's conventional wisdom. It could be hard with 2 guys who are decision makers and ball handlers. How hard is that to mesh as Adams gets his 3rd block?
I don't think it's hard, because both guys can be playmakers.
Adams digging it out. Pittsburgh enjoying its largest lead of the afternoon. Great play to Zana. A lot of contact, no call. Another offensive board, and Zana puts it home.
I definitely thought he could have been shooting a couple free throws on the first move.
It was hard contact underneath. Letting them play here at the Garden. As Pittsburgh opened its season with 4 straight wins. You know, all these teams here in New York really untested. Maybe Delaware would be the only one not, as Sadler scores. They had to go on the road and win at Virginia, but the Kansas States, the Michigans, the Pittsburghs, these kind of tournaments give them the kind of test that you really, in past, when you're not out there playing high competition, you're not getting to a conference season.
Well, there's certain things you can put in your defensive schemes, but until you're putting in those schemes and understanding your switches at game speed, you don't internalize those, and Sadler continues to compete.
Higgins the steal, Sadler the finish. Back within 20 points. This is a tough pre-conference schedule for Delaware, and you give Monte Ross a lot of credit for scheduling. Obviously, they weren't guaranteed they were going to make it to New York, but they get the likes of Kansas State, and today Pittsburgh. They play at Temple on Sunday. Then they go to Duke. Then they're not done. They play at Villanova. So this is, talk about battle testing your team early. Patterson for 3.
So good patience. Delaware goes into a zone. They drop into 2-3 zone. Good patience, good ball movement.
And Jamie Dixon calling the timeout off the made 3. Lamar Patterson finished last season wonderfully. Shot 41% from 3 last year. And another one there. Timeout. Showdown Saturday on ABC tomorrow, featuring a trifecta of impact games, noon Eastern, Ohio State and Michigan. Then at 3:30 Eastern, great rivalry, Florida and Florida State. And then top-ranked Notre Dame will win away from the BCS national title game. They get USC at 8 Eastern time, all on ABC.
I would like to see a defensive player win the Heisman, Monte Teo.
Oh.
And how about Michigan, Ohio State? I don't care what their records are. It's a great story about Bo Schembechler and Woody Hayes both standing in the tunnel waiting to come out. And Woody Hayes sort of muttering under his breath, we will fight these right here and now.
Well, Urban Meyer, our old colleagues, done a great job. They're undefeated, but of course not eligible to play in postseason. And Ohio State and Michigan up in those parts always testing.
Yes, yes. And Sadler gets another bucket. This guy just knows how to score, knows how to play. And again, I thought this 20 minutes and 23 minutes we were talking about at the end of the first half, it's important. This is a game where there's still things to be learned if you're Delaware.
This is something that Jamie Dixon also went to his bench early in the second half. Despite all the success they have, they've got Ziegler on the floor now, Taylor on the floor, and he really got some great minutes out of that bench. Here's Sadler and the rest of the team's production. Devon Sadler coming off a 32-point effort Wednesday night. Tied a career high. 3. Missing on the triple. Another offensive rebound, and Sadler's chance falls off the rim.
Well, in an era of ongoing landscape changes, the Big East is no different. We will take a look when we come back at some of the thoughts of some prominent coaches in the current Big East and what's coming their way.
A large lead against Delaware in our third-place game here at Madison Square Garden. Of course, Pittsburgh's leaving the Big East after this year. Rutgers announcing within the week they're heading to. So this is the realignment as of now. Could change again.
It's a fluid situation. It was interesting to read Jim Boeheim's comments this week, reacting rather strongly, saying rivalries don't matter to anyone anymore. If you ask someone at West Virginia if they like going to Texas Tech or A&M and all those places, ask their fans whether they like it. I don't get it. It's just the way it's going, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can sense obvious frustration with the ongoing changes, and it's not done yet. There's a piece on ESPN.com about vultures circling the Big East, and is anybody else going?
How about that? First time since World War I that Pittsburgh and West Virginia are not meeting. There's rivalries all across the nation. Kansas, Missouri. I mean, you're talking 1800s.
Correct. What I wonder, and here's something we won't know for another 10 years or so. Obviously, much of this is about revenue and dollars. What we don't know yet, Mark, is fandom and viewership impacted? Do ratings go down as you try to establish new rivalries? Because as Jim Boeheim alluded to in that, what about the fans? To me, when I think back to my formative years as a college basketball fan, you know, it was Syracuse, Georgetown in January, 3 weeks of talking about the chippy game and what happened. Nice little pressure here by Higgins.
Higgins the steal. Sadler fouled. He'll get to the line as Moore on the block. Sadler, by the way, has scored the last 8 Delaware points, and he'll get a chance for 2 more.
Well, what do? You extend pressure and you try to make some things happen, and you do. And again, I'll go back to the point I made pre-break. There is still basketball to be played and lessons to be learned. And listen, we've talked about Hens and Sadler and the ownership they've taken of this program, and in practices when teammates have not been up to par. They've got to compete.
And Sadler converts on the first, and Jamie Dixon, we mentioned, went to his bench early, bringing in a couple more starters. Zana and Woodall back on the floor for Robinson and Moore, who has 3 fouls.
I just want to revisit our conference realignment. What was your initial take when you hear about the departures of Maryland and then Rutgers?
Well, neither made sense to me. First of all, it was a little bit of a shock. I mean, I understand, as you pointed out as well, there is an end game, there's a financial game. I think also there's a football aspect to this as well, which may be greater than the game you and I both love here. But it is difficult. Sometimes I wonder, though, is it just us old-fashioned thinking?
Yes, right.
But how long does a rivalry take to form?
Sure.
And then the next step is, okay, then when's the next domino going to fall?
Because it's fluid. I mean, we just showed you how the Big East is constituted today. It may not be that tomorrow.
Zana fouled on a jump shot about 18 feet from the rim. He's not going to get fouled too many times from out there. And Devon Sadler picks up his 2nd personal.
So that's tape you can use right there, right? If you're Monte Ross, you're coming with pressure. You've made a couple of things happen here, but now you review that in tape and say, okay, guys, this is silly. We don't foul Zana in this circumstance that far from the rim.
Philippe Zana had a big first half for Pittsburgh. They can get Hens a little more involved offensively. Those who haven't seen Delaware this year, this is a guy that they are projecting could be an NBA player after his collegiate career is done. But out of the double team, a steal. Ziegler going hard toward the rim. Poked out of bounds, and it's going to Delaware.
It'll be interesting to know about Hens. You know, they've talked about Dennis Rodman making a career, as you see the corner being turned and the rejection. You know, is he a guy who can be as dominant in the NBA, rebound the basketball as he has been here?
Averaged double-double last season. Off to that start here. Been a little bit passive in this game, though, as Baptiste gets fouled on the baseline. It's number 3 on Dante Taylor. He's 3rd in the nation in rebounding a year ago. But there you see in the 17 minutes, he had 2 fouls in the first half, but still not getting a lot of shot opportunities so far in the game.
But more length and size for Pittsburgh, and he's 6'9". But unlike Rodman, there have been times over the course of this guy's career where they will look to feed him in the post and he's got a little left hook, right hook.
Anderson trying to take it inside. And there is Hens trying to save it out of bounds. And, you know, ever since that severe cramping, even with the day off,
right,
perhaps also factoring in.
You have to wonder about the soreness of that. I don't think you can recover quickly. They've obviously, over the last, 36 hours, tried very hard to make sure he's rehydrated. Dealt with the electrolyte replacement, but, he's still sore.
Woodall to Zana, throws it down.
From Trey Woodall.
14 points for Talib Zana. Pittsburgh out in front by 21. All the way from 3 is short. Loose ball foul the other way. Pittsburgh will take it.
Delaware foul called against number 33, Carl Baptiste.
Carl Baptiste called for his first personal foul. It's going to be an interesting year in the Colonial also, regardless of how Delaware plays in the pre-conference schedule. Just mathematically, they're going to have a good chance come conference time, because that's also a conference in flux.
Yeah, no doubt. And Drexel, who went 29-7, 16-2 in the league. Another miscue there by Pittsburgh.
And another basket by Sadler. Well, they show you spurts here.
Yes.
This time they break the pressure. See if the big man can run the floor. Tried to throw it down a little too far out and turns it over.
Jamie Dixon is really going after Pat Driscoll, asking for a foul on that move by Adams.
Delaware has it inside of 20. Sadler, it goes down, and he has scored the last 14 Delaware points. And there you see him on the bench trying to fire up the guys.
He doesn't go quietly, this guy. There is a real toughness and swagger, and it matters not who's looking opposite him. This guy is confident, and he feels like he could score against anybody.
10-4 Delaware run. Take a look at Sadler.
Yeah, you can't become passive. You got Trey Woodall standing up defensively, play to a standard, not to the score. They relax a little bit, and Sadler makes him pay. He is a hard right-handed driver, gets a soft touch off the window.
Lead scorer for the fighting Blue Hens.
And I think Jamie Dixon got to be a little bit frustrated. It's natural to sort of, have the human element. Is there a foul here? I like the non-call. I really do. What do you think?
Well, Adams was coming in hard. I thought he went pretty much straight up from where he was. Adams was bringing a lot of momentum.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could call the arm block with the left. But I like the no call there. I really do. That to me, and I know we're talking college basketball, that looks like an NBA play where there is no whistle.
Yeah.
But we are talking college basketball. So.
They didn't bail Adams out on that one. 10-4 Delaware run. We told you Sadler scored 14 straight for the Hens. In fact, he's got 57 points so far in the 2 games here at Madison Square Garden. And showing the pressure, Delaware. Terrell Rogers in the lineup now for the Blue Hens. Still a long way to go, but big hill to climb for Delaware right now.
They're staying in this 2-3 zone. See how patient Pittsburgh is with it.
A nice shot from Patterson. Chase down in the corner. Anderson saves. Really mixing it up with that face mask on. And Rogers a quick 3 in and out. Is that one of those where the coach is like, no, and say yes if it goes down?
It's interesting. When I was watching that young man play, nice backdoor cut, slip behind the defense. Rogers has got great potential. But I wrote down when I was watching play, I go, plays young. But he's a scorer, and he's confident. You don't want to take that away, so you live with some mistakes with this young guy.
5-point swing there on the basket going in and out. And the Ziegler cut to the hoop. Here's Hagens. They're going one-on-one against the freshman. Now the double team. And down court, Patterson beating the defense for the score.
How about the pass by Woodall? This is why I think both guys, Robinson and Woodall, could be very good decision makers. High assist to turnover ratio guys, which is what Jamie Dixon values.
What a game for Trey Woodall. Got 13 points, 7 assists so far in this game. Anderson off the curl. Knocks it down. He got a good-looking touch. A little trouble with the face mask at times. Rips that thing right off on timeouts. But not affecting his vision.
No, I tell you, that's not easy. A right-handed shooter coming to his left is not easy to do. But watch this pass. This is a release by Patterson. I tell you, that's like a quarterback thrown to the end zone. And then Anderson, here's a right-handed shooter coming left. You have to make sure your body gets square. Defenders trailing too far off the screen. Nicely done.
We were talking to Monte Ross earlier today about recruiting guys like Kyle Anderson and just how tough it is to recruit at Delaware. But here's a perfect example. Anderson is playing AAU tournament in Las Vegas a few years ago, and they're looking for a shooter, Delaware. Monte Ross walks in. He's walking by a court. Anderson hits a 3, and he told us, you don't really figure out his name until you see him hit a second one. Well, he hit a second one before Ross and his gang even walked across the court, so they found out his name. The next day, he drops 40 in an AAU game, and the rest is history. Sometimes recruiting can be hit or miss.
Yeah, there's our shooter. I'll tell you, at that level, I think your player development skills have got to be really good. You're not competing for the top 50 recruits in the country. You've got to get that next level guy and make them better.
Pittsburgh still in front by 19. Delaware trying to chip away with 9.5 minutes to go. Panthers have been hitting from outside, and Lamar Patterson hits another one. As you pointed out, the three-point shooting of Pittsburgh has been stark in the early season. Rogers going to try to answer. Now it's tough to play that 3-for-3 game if you're Delaware. You know, when you got a guy like Sadler who can penetrate, and Higgins, although he hasn't had a big game yet. Look at that touch.
Good touch, yeah. I'll tell you, Pittsburgh without, you wouldn't say there's one true dominating star, but you've got some answers from multiple spots.
And a foul against Pittsburgh. Not going to be an easy year for other Big East teams. How about Steven Adams? They call him the Kiwi Wonder. Doesn't need to be right next to the basket to finish. Pittsburgh still out in front of Delaware, 66-43. Now you really have to keep track of all the comings and goings, Doris, in conference play. We talked about the Colonial. They're also in flux as well.
Well, how about this? I mean, this is a postseason tournament that was gaining some momentum. You will have 7 teams eligible. UNC Wilmington, Towson, those are both APR casualties. They're not eligible because of that. Georgia State and ODU, lame duck in the conference. They're not eligible because they're departing. You've got Bruiser Flint's team that won 29 games, just lost their best player. So a real opportunity here for Monte Ross as he sort of continues the progression of this program. They were picked preseason second. Can they go ahead and win an outright CAA championship?
Find out, and as we said, it's a field that has been greatly diminished come March. Meanwhile, Delaware trying to cut into this Pittsburgh lead. I don't want to say it's a quiet 25 for Devon Sadler, but you look up and all of a sudden he got 25 points.
Yeah, and again, this guy plays with a little chip on his shoulder, always sort of overlooked in high school, and I like that he competes. We've talked about it, you're playing hard, you're coming with pressure, you're trying. I said, with 23 minutes to play, there's stuff to play for. You're not going to win the game. I know you're knowing that, but look at this.
Look at
efforts, hit the deck. Love it.
Devon Sadler a little bit hobbling as he comes up. Had a little knee-to-knee contact late in the first half, and he stayed out for about 13 seconds.
Yeah.
Tough kid.
Yeah, very tough.
6'2" junior from Aberdeen, Maryland, not far from Baltimore. Shot clock around 10. Pittsburgh's been hitting from outside here in the second half. Adams missing. Zana came flying in for an offensive rebound. And there'll be a Delaware foul on the block.
Delaware foul called against number 4.
Jarvis Street be his second.
See, now the little guy tried to check out Zana.
It's tough enough to check him out when he's standing still. When he comes with a head of steam, it's life and limb. Zana's had a big game. 16 points.
Been terrific.
10 rebounds. It's 4 points off his tying his career high. And just another guy stepping up his play as a junior. Great look down for Adams.
I tell you what, he's got 2 assists already, and here's the thing you liked about Pittsburgh. Coming out of the last break, they had 28 field goals. They had assists on 20 of them. That means the ball is moving. Now you see what Delaware's done. How in the final 21 minutes they are still competing. 16 for 31 as opposed to the 1 for 13 start.
If you're just joining us, an ice-cold start for Delaware. Pittsburgh built a big early lead, led by as many as 21 in the first half, extended that lead here in the second. Here's Patterson with the contact. He'll get himself to the line. Carl Baptiste picks up the foul. His second brings us to a timeout as the sun sets in New York City as it's setting on Delaware.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Lowe's. Lowe's, never stop improving. TD Ameritrade. And K Jewelers. Every kiss begins with K.
Welcome back to the world's most famous arena here in New York City, Madison Square Garden. But sometimes the world's most famous arena also could have technical difficulties. This happened on Wednesday night as well. That's a clamp that I believe supports the shot clock, which is above the basket to our right. And we're told they're going to play through it. So apparently it's not enough to risk that support falling. But we had a considerable delay the other night. Looks like we won't have here. By the way, ESPN College Basketball available live anytime, anywhere on your computer, tablet, or smartphone at watchespn.com with the Watch ESPN app.
I thought they stopped play the other night for quite some time because they felt it was a safety issue. Yeah.
Might have been a different clamp.
Perhaps.
They're going to keep playing here. We're going to have 2 shots coming out of this timeout.
Probably a good thing I'm not shooting at that.
I think I could beat you to that. This is Lamar Patterson getting set to shoot some free throws. He's in double figures with 14 points. Talib Zana in double figures. He's got double-double, 16 and 10. Trey Woodall has 13 and 7 assists so far, as we highlighted in the first half the depth of this year's Pittsburgh team. Everybody has scored but James Robinson.
Between Robinson and Woodall, you've got 10 assists 2 turnovers. Those are numbers your staff would be very comfortable with.
Pittsburgh preseason 6th selection in the Big East, as Patterson pokes it away, but Delaware comes back with it. No shot clock reset, and now a kickball will stop the shot clock at 15.
Kickball.
Well, even though this was a horrific start for Delaware, you can see some of the signs of what could make this a very special season in Newark.
Sure, you wonder if Monte Ross had it to do over, would he come with a little bit of that pressure just a little bit earlier? Maybe try to create some easy opportunities. Once they started to miss, it almost became contagious.
Compounded, and then they got beat inside bad early. And here he is, Zana, and he'll get to the line as Baptiste gets called for contact, his 3rd.
Delaware foul called against number 33, Carl Baptiste. His 3rd and the team's 6th.
Zana's career high is 20, and that gives him 17 points. Well, here's a look at the CAA. As you mentioned, Delaware was picked preseason number 2 to Drexel, right in between Drexel and George Mason. Going to be a nice top 3 in the Colonial this year.
Well, 18 wins for Delaware a season ago, 12 in conference, 12-6. Lost in the first round of the CBI to Butler. No shame there. And obviously you have to show signs of progress if you're Monte Ross. They've done that. This is going to be an illegal screen, I believe, or just an offensive foul on Sadler.
That'll be number 3 on Devon Sadler.
Against Delaware's number 10, Devon Sadler, his 3rd.
It's been a long day for Monte Ross, trying to get his club back in it. Monte Ross, one of the really good guys in college basketball. 3 years ago, his team went 7-24, and when you're trying to sell, long-term and patient, sometimes in the middle of your 7-year plan here, that's the kind of year that'll get you fired. But they bought into it, and it has paid off this year. Blocked by Higgins, knocked out of bounds.
Well, and every coach, he said, I'm gratified by the expectations. It's been a long process, in building this program and the culture. We watched him practice, and, he was on point.
Talk.
A little frustrated today, imploring his team to talk on defense against a Pittsburgh team that's beat him inside, beat him outside. Right now a 25-point game with about 6 minutes to go. Don't forget, we'll have Michigan and Kansas State in our championship game coming up. Adams in the biggest mismatch of the night takes Terrell Rogers. It's about a 16-inch mismatch underneath.
You see he's got really good touch though. His face-up game to 12 feet, uses either hand. And the mistakes he makes defensively, really, it's just about speed of the game.
3-pointer up, Sadler missing. King Davis, the rebound, turns, shoots, scores, and will get to the line.
King Davis and 1. A foul called against Pittsburgh.
Even Adams, a 7-footer from New Zealand.
Yeah, he's got the smallest guy on the floor, and Rogers on him.
And Sadler with the help wasn't helping much either for size. Although he did almost get a hand on that. Wow.
Well, they list Rogers at 5'8". There is no shot. Remember his dad, Shante Rogers?
Yes.
GW, great scorer. Yep. Who do you think's bigger, Pops or Terrell?
Oh, boy. So what's the rule on that? If you're under 6 feet, whatever you're listed in is usually about an inch taller?
I guess.
Is that how it goes?
Except in the Ivy Leagues, they understate how tall they are, so that when you step on the floor, you're like, boy, these guys are bigger than they think they are.
That's right. That worked for Harvard for a while, until Tommy Amaker got him good. And everyone knew. Coming up on 5 minutes to go here in our 3rd place game. J.J. Moore gets Higgins up in the air, and Higgins commits the personal, his 3rd.
Delaware foul called against number 44, Janelle Higgins.
I'm excited to get a live look at Michigan. I've seen him several times, and I know John Beilein has talked about maybe this being the most talented roster he's ever had. He took some heat from his former West Virginia teams. Guys didn't like that. But I must say it, this is the best roster John Beilein's ever had. Number 4 in the country, legit shot at a Final Four.
And John Beilein's had success just about everywhere he's gone. Took West Virginia to the Elite Eight one year, went to the Sweet 16. But I think your point, an outstanding roster with great potential.
2 Wooden Award guys already. Trey Burke, one of the elite guards in the country, puts a ton of pressure on you. And 17 points per game from Tim Hardaway. He's rebounded the ball at an extremely high clip.
And Dockich will be joining us for our championship game. So we look forward to number 4 Michigan against Kansas State. This is it's one of those old school early tournaments as Taylor. A little odd collision with Higgins there. But he pops right up, which is good news, as Higgins picks up his 4th.
How many gigs can Dan Dockich work this week? He's been on Mike and Mikey at the doubleheader Wednesday. He's got his own radio show in Indiana. Oof.
It was actually an offensive foul on J.J. Moore. Saw the 44 go up, both wearing 44. But yeah, the hardest working man at ESPN.
They call him Superman when he shows up at the table.
Doubleheader at the Garden. Morning radio for ESPN Radio. And then in the studio as well. Here's Higgins showing us some outside touch. Rattles around.
For Delaware, Jamel Higgins.
Mel Higgins, who has improved all those key statistics every year he's been there. He's going to stay with Pittsburgh. He was a guy that 2 games into his freshman year, Higgins, Monte Ross called him aside. Don't know if maybe he thought he was in trouble or something, and coach just wanted to let him know, we're going to build this program around you. You're a freshman, you've only played 2 games, but they saw something in him. And Higgins has developed here into his senior year. Tough afternoon against Pittsburgh, but a team that appears to be reckoned with in Delaware. 4 minutes to go. Anderson passing up the shot. Sadler won't. Knocks down another triple. 28 for Sadler.
Credit the assist to Kyle Anderson. The Blue Hens take a timeout.
I'll tell you the story you love. It's the Monday before they're coming to New York City to play in this tournament. They're having a horrific practice, absolutely horrific. Monte Ross doesn't have to say a word. Sadler and Higgins light into the guys, and that's the kind of vested interest you need from your upperclassmen if you're going to build something special. It's a great sign. Earlier this year, I go to the Celtics training camp, and I happen to be sitting next to Nate McMillan. And we're just watching practice, and Doc Rivers and his staff are going over the defense, and Kevin Garnett is shouting directions at Fab Melo and the other rookies. And Nate McMillan just simply looks over at me and he said, that is priceless. When you have your team, your guys communicating with one another so that the head coach is not the only voice these guys are hearing, it's invaluable. And that's what Monte Ross has.
He's got that in Sadler and Higgins. And Josh Brinkley, a senior as well, a 6'6" senior who did not play today. So they dealt with the cramping issues. Lost one of their players, but I'm not sure even full strength would have been enough for this Pittsburgh team. Gets another throwdown, this time from Steven Adams. I think if you're Jamie Dixon, you got to come away from New York City. Sure, disappointed he couldn't finish against Michigan. But they played probably their best game of the year here this afternoon in what's only been game number 6.
I love their unselfishness. Their assist to basket ratio has been high. And again, I'll reiterate, I think Steven Adams and the pace at which he develops is an important piece of what happens with Pittsburgh moving forward.
Official timeout.
The officials timeout being taken here at Madison Square Garden. As Steven Adams and Pittsburgh, he's already the preseason Big East Freshman of the Year. Pittsburgh up big, 3:18 left. if you love the Michigan Wolverines, and I know the folks in Ann Arbor are getting very excited, we've got them coming up next here. And then Tuesday on ESPN, the ACC Big Ten Challenge. They'll take on NC State, 7:30 Eastern, followed by a top 10 matchup. #1 Indiana against 9th-ranked North Carolina. The ACC Big Ten Challenge Tuesday on ESPN. There you see the maize in blue. And look at all the Michigan fans here in attendance. They're starting to make their way in. This was a very loud place. They even were chanting, "Beat Ohio State."
I couldn't believe it. That was coming through loud and clear in my living room. I was watching that doubleheader. And I say this about Indiana and Michigan. It's going to be a compelling Big Ten race. I think it's become obvious that Cody Zeller, who's everybody's popular pick for National Player of the Year, the weight of responsibility is not exclusively on his shoulders. And one thing that's striking me is, as talented as Yogi Ferrell is, and he's an extraordinarily talented rookie, it is nice when you have a player like Jordan Hulls beside him so that he can carry some of the burden, be the steady decision maker, shot maker, and that's exactly what Tom Crean has gotten from Jordan Hulls.
Yep, I was going to say, you were relating these teams here and coaches investing in their players, and when you've got guys that can get that done for you as well. Tom Crean has the bar set very high at the start. Got to live up to all that. But a great start for the Hoosiers and for college basketball here early.
How excruciating do you think it was on Tom Crean those first couple of years in Indiana? I mean, that was brutal. And you talk about being patient and sort of keep scrapping. And I'll tell you what, and I remember Jay Billis saying this, Indiana is back in a big way in that state. And you think about Purdue now. Does it change the equation for Purdue and the great job that staff has done?
As King Davis knocks down that shot. You got to give credit to Delaware not giving up here. But we talk about the Big Ten and how strong it is. Let's take a look at the AP top 10 poll from the Big Ten coming up in just a moment. Here it is. Indiana first. You got Ohio State. You got Michigan. There's some tough teams here early on.
Yeah, and I'm actually very excited to get a look at Syracuse. I'll have them later in December against Temple. Michael Carter-Williams, who came in as a highly touted recruit, probably didn't have his freshman year play as well as he would like, but that guy is an explosive athlete, a talented passer. And there's so many teams with such tremendous upside here. You look at Kentucky with so many new guys. They'll develop. North Carolina, they'll be a far better shooting team than they were a year ago when they could not make a perimeter jump shot.
And Coach K's got to be happy with Duke, too. 3 seniors this year, bringing in a couple of good-looking freshmen as well.
And how about the numbers for Mr. Plumlee? 20 points, 17 rebounds.
Jason Plumlee and Duke right now ranked 5th in the nation. We'll have the number 4 team in the country on the floor here in New York coming up, as Michigan will take on Kansas State for the championship of this tournament. It's a nice pass by Adams. Moore gets it blocked, gets it back, and almost put one in, but it'll get to the line.
You think about a guy like Mason Plumlee, you know, his brother's a first-round draft selection, probably exceeding expectations in his first year in the NBA. Would have been a first-round draft choice. But he didn't feel as though his career at Duke had played exactly the way he wanted to do. He wanted to leave more of a mark, so he comes back for that exclusive purpose. I mean, how great is that?
Yeah, well, you love that as a college basketball fan. We saw, taking it to football, Matt Barkley do the same thing. Now, of course, it kind of tailed off for him, and you know, he might not be as high of a draft pick and now is out injured, but you do love to see that. And they got off to a great start, neutral site, in the Champions Classic a couple of weeks ago. 2 minutes to go here in New York in our third place game, and this is Marvin King Davis. He's 6'7" out of Richmond, red-shirted last year, getting a lot of minutes today, and maybe showing Coach Monte Ross a
no
thing, too.
question. Very nice finish again by Steven Adams, who keeps getting ahead of the defense. But you're right. I think King Davis has comported himself very well. You know, you're not expecting that Brinkley's not going to play, and you're going to get as many minutes. But he's doing a good job.
In and out on Larry Savage shot. Rebound for Adams. Totally different look tonight for Steven Adams. He struggled a little bit on Wednesday, but just the confidence, you could see it in him.
Repetition.
Yeah.
Young man needs repetition.
Trying to feed Adams, and he gets fouled down low with 1:19 to go. Steven Adams,
Delaware foul.
7-foot freshman from New Zealand. He committed to Pittsburgh 3 years ago. Jamie Dixon played the bulk of his professional basketball career in New Zealand. In fact, played with Adams' brother, one of 18 siblings, Steven Adams.
That's hard for me to fathom. I'm the last of 8.
That's a big family.
That's a big number.
Imagine 18.
And
his sister's got 2 golds.
Right. How's that to live up to?
Well, I'll tell you what. Unfortunately, lost his dad at a young age when he was 13. And Steven Adams actually ended up on the streets in New Zealand. One of his brothers got him out of the streets, got him into sports, and now has him in a U.S. college and playing big-time basketball.
And an extraordinary future to boot, an unbelievable upside. I mean, you think about Pitt's development of big guys. Think of Aaron Gray, correct?
Yeah.
Mr. McGee. All their big guys have developed under Jamie Dixon. This guy will grow and develop.
Under a minute to go at Madison Square Garden in a third-place game. Pittsburgh on its way toward a victory against Delaware. Here's Adams. Look at that. Soft touch from the 7-footer.
Uses either hand around the bucket.
Wow. Adams with 13 points on 6 of 9 shooting. By far his best so far in his very brief career at Pittsburgh.
Now, no blood, no foul here. This whistle better not blow again.
Terrell Rogers with a floater. Adams lost the rebound. Shot clock is off. Moore with the save off the steal. And James Robinson will dribble it out as Pittsburgh gets an impressive 85-59 victory over Delaware. And a big day for these guys. Talib Zana coming up with a double-double. Lamar Patterson also coming up with a double-double.
Depth, balance, good guard play, unselfish passing. Other than giving up the offensive rebounds, a really solid showing by Pittsburgh.
28 points for that guy. Devon Sadler tried to stick Delaware on his back, but they just couldn't make the comeback from down deep too early. So there are the updated brackets. Kansas State and Michigan, they're going to play for the championship coming up next on ESPN. Once again, our final score, Pittsburgh 85, Delaware 59. Up next, it's college basketball live scoreboard, followed by Kansas State and Michigan in the NIT season tip-off championship here from Madison Square Garden. But right now, we're going to take you back to the studio, send it off to Kevin Connors and Seth Greenberg.
All right.